There's a unique thing about analyzing functions. In this case, we have linear, piecewise functions. And just because you've been good at math in the past doesn't mean you're good at this. If you're a visual learner, a lot of times you do a better job. And if you pay really close attention to details, you often do well in this. So let's get started. Some of the most easy ones are identifying the x and y intercept. But detail matters here. So when you use parentheses or brackets, the way you write the ordered pair, all of that matters. So let's get started here. We are analyzing functions number one. We're starting with finding the x-intercept. Please go to the x-intercept. It has a closed dot. So what is this ordered pair? I'm going to go 3 to the right. Please write down 3, 0. Now, if you understand that, you're going to put a little smiley face off to the side. You're going to do an assessment of learning of each one of these. So it's going to tell you, what do I need to study before you come into class on Monday? All right, we're going to come back to this in a second. I want you to find the one about the y-intercept. So please go down to the y-intercept. We have a y-intercept right here. It is at 0, 5. So it is important you write this correctly. This is 0, 5. Again, if you feel comfortable, you put a smiley face. If you're not comfortable with that, it's a frowny face. Please make sure in back you're not talking, even whispering. Thank you. All right, we're going to now go on to identifying points in the graph. So I would like you to do me a favor, and I would like you to put a -2 into this position, which is number 2. Put a -2 into this position. And please come down to number 7 and put a -5. What does this mean? It means when the input value is -2. And if you're not sure what that means, it means when you go on the x-axis to -2. Okay, let me find -2. That's right here. I want to know, what is the corresponding y value if one exists? So is the corresponding y value at +2 or is it at +5? And it is based on if we have a closed circle or closed dot. We're going to identify the y value for the closed dot. In this case, that's at +2. If you feel comfortable, you're going to continue to put a smiley face or a frowny face next to each one of these. Let's go down to number 7. Number 7, I'm going to go on the x-axis because that's what this means. The input value is -5, so find -5. Go up or down until you hit some part of the graph if it exists. What is the corresponding y value? It is +5. Okay, please underline increasing, underline decreasing, and constant. That would be number 4, number 8, and number 10. If you happen to have a crayon like I asked you to pick up, I'm going to have you underline those in the one color. And we're going to go off to the side because I know students have difficulty with this. When you describe areas of the graph or intervals specifically that are increasing, decreasing, and constant, there's a couple things we have to remember. One is we always use parentheses, never, ever, ever use brackets. That's the first thing. We always describe these intervals using the x values in which it exists. So if we get started right now, I want to ask myself, and I have to read this from left to right. So when you're looking at the graph, you have to look at it just like you would read. You can find out from Chris really quick, Angel, what you need to get. Angel, you need to grab 2 crayons, please. Okay, ready? Let's look decreasing right now. Decreasing. So from left to right, I always ask students, do you feel like from left to right you'd be going downhill or uphill from left to right along this line? Downhill. So in this position, I'm just going to write DEC for decreasing. From left to right on this piece of the function, would you be going downhill, uphill, or staying constant? Okay, constant. From left to right, would you be going uphill or downhill? Okay. So in this graph, this particular graph, do we have any increasing pieces? No. We don't. So let's find where it says increasing, and there is none. So I'm going to put NA. There's none that exist. There's no increasing intervals. Let's first do the constant because that's the easiest one. So I know I have to use parentheses. I'm going to start with parentheses right away. I know I have to use parentheses. Okay, I'm going to come back over here. I know I have to use parentheses. And then I have to describe it in terms of x values. So take your hands right now. I'm going to grab 2 papers, and I'm going to cover this up just like this. Okay, that's the constant interval. So from left to right, what x value does it start at? It starts at an x value of -2. And it goes to an x value of +3. So in this position, I'm going to do negative 2 comma 3. The smaller number must go first, so negative 2 is smaller than positive 3. I'm going to give you a second. Don't be afraid to put a frowny face if you're like, I'm not really confident in doing that. Go through each one that we have done so far, and you're going to put your smiley face or frowny face according to your understanding. That's part of your required work. Please don't get ahead of yourself, okay? All right, let's go now to decreasing. So let's describe this first one. I'm going to cover up, so we are only looking at this. Now, decreasing means it goes down from left to right. Got that? That's not a problem. Down from left to right. In terms of x values, it comes from way over here. What symbol do we use to describe way over here? Negative infinity. So I'm going to find where it says decreasing, and the first interval goes from negative infinity, and it goes all the way until an x value of negative 2. And remember, we only use parentheses. We only use parentheses when we describe this. Okay, let's move on to the next part. This is also decreasing, so I'm going to cover up the other part, and I will allow you to use a blank piece of paper that I can provide you when you take this quiz. Okay, so what x value, once it leaves that x value, it begins to decrease. What is this x value? Positive 3. So I'm going to come right back over here. Positive 3, and as it moves to the right, it's decreasing. Yes, I know it's going down. How do I know it's going down? It's decreasing. I'm already identifying it as going down from left to right. So it's decreasing as it moves to the right, it goes down. As it moves to the right, it is going down. It's really common for students who want to put a negative infinity here. Really common mistake. Okay, we've got those done. Let's move on right now to the domain. So the domain, remember, you're going to walk along the X bridge here. This arrow that is going up to the left, it's going up as it goes to the left, says it will continue to move up at a diagonal position to the left. There's no stop. So it goes from negative infinity, it keeps going, it keeps going, it keeps going, it keeps going. There's no breaks. Even here, there's not a break because it goes from this closed dot all the way up to this constant interval, and now it jumps down to the closed dot. And just like to the far left, to the far right, it's going down and it's never stopping. So the domain is negative infinity to positive with parentheses. There's only 2 left, and these 2, I'm going to use that second colored crayon. That's a different color. And I want you, and by the way, I forgot an E on the word negative. I want you to underline the word negative and positive. And by the way, I want you to write y values above that. We're talking about the y values. Where are the y values positive and where are the y values negative? So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to take a crayon and I'm going to go right along the x-axis, not the y-axis, the x-axis. I know anything above that is going to be the positive y values. Positive y values. And anything below that is going to be the negative y values. So if I asked you, how many intervals do you see that are in the positive y value section? How many intervals do you see? There's 2. There's 2, okay? So let's go to where it says positive y's. That would be number 9. I'm going to describe this. Now, when we describe this, yes, we do describe it in terms of x values, but sometimes we use brackets. So here we go. It comes from the far left, and it continues to be in the positive y all the way down to a value of negative 2, an x value of negative 2. Now, at negative 2, I see a closed dot, and that closed dot means that point exists for this linear piecewise function. So I need to describe it as being part of the y positives by putting a bracket. Your infinity symbols will only ever have parentheses no matter what question you have, okay? That's one interval that describes y positives. Okay, let's do this one. Okay, it starts at an x value of, what's the x value? Negative 2. It runs to an x value of positive 3. Now, sitting next to somebody close to you, notice there's holes here. At negative 2 for this interval, is it in the positive region? No, because there's an open circle. At positive 3, we don't also include positive 3 as being part of the y positive. So I'm going to come down here, and this is parentheses, -2 to +3. So in between these two endpoints, yes, it's positive, but at those endpoints, putting the parentheses means those two endpoints on that interval do not have positive endpoints, or do not have positive values. Okay, let's go to the negative. At -3, would you consider this y value to be positive, negative, or neutral? Neutral, because it has a y value that is 0. So this is neutral. Y values that are neutral on the x-axis. But as I move to the right, it now is in the negative y range. So I'm going to say down here that the negatives, we can't include -3, but as I move to the right, they're all negative. Make sure along the right-hand side, it's okay if they're all frowning faces. I want you to describe your understanding.